We are a culture that is completely obsessed with optimization. Like, we want to hack every second of our day.
Oh, absolutely. Everything has to be productive.
Right. Yet somehow we have never been more burned out. Why is that?
It's the big paradox, you know?
Yeah, and today we're doing a deep dive into two distinct texts to uncover exactly that paradox. It's this profound idea that our pursuit of more is actually destroying our ability to just be enough. We're looking at two sources today. One is called The Architecture of Measure, Finding Depth Through Refinement, and the other is The Measure of Meaning, Finding Balance in Life and Soul.
Both really fascinating pieces.
Very. And they both anchor themselves in a larger work, specifically Essay 11, which is titled, Where is Measure Lost?
Right.
So our mission for you on this deep dive is to figure out how to stop scattering your energy, avoid this trap of modern exhaustion, and, actually deepen your life.
I love that mission.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand Essay 11, don't we need a little context first?
We do, yeah. To tackle Essay 11 effectively, we need to bring in a crucial piece of context from the chapter right before it, Essay 10.
Right, the setup.
Exactly. That section lays the groundwork by exploring what a harmonious existence actually requires. It argues that harmony isn't just about, feeling good all the time.
Like just chasing happiness.
Right. It actually demands a wise management of resources for the greater good. And, critically, it requires a deep awareness of meaning.
A meaning that kind of transcends our own selfish impulses, right? Or even the crushing weight of social expectations.
Yes, it's about finding a sustainable center.
But that raises a massive contradiction right out of the gate, because most of us genuinely want that harmonious existence.
We do.
Like, we want a fulfilling career, a healthy family, a deep sense of purpose. Our intentions are usually solid.
Very true.
We plug the destination into our mental GPS, we know true north, and we start driving. Yet, we still end up broken down on the side of the highway with an empty tank.
Just completely exhausted.
Exactly. So if we have this deep awareness as a goal and our intentions are genuinely good, why are we stumbling so consistently?
What's fascinating here is how the texts identify the root of this human error. It's actually very surprising.
Surprising how?
It asserts that more often than not, a human being does not err by actively choosing falsehood.
Wait, really? So it's not a deliberate mistake?
Exactly. We aren't usually failing because we woke up and decided to be malicious or because we purposely took the wrong path.
Right.
The intention is right and the direction is actually true. We fail because we fall into either excess or deficiency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we just lose our sense of measure.
So it isn't that we took a wrong turn, it's that we slammed on the gas pedal so hard the engine literally tore itself apart.
That is the perfect way to put it. And the illusion that causes that engine failure is one of the most dangerous traps outlined in the source material.
Because it sneaks up on you.
It completely sneaks up on you. Life does not let you notice this loss of measure immediately. At first, excess feels utterly identical to power.
Right, like sprinting the first mile of a marathon.
Yes. When you start doing more, saying more, and moving faster, you get this huge initial adrenaline rush.
And you feel invincible.
Exactly. But that rush completely disguises the structural damage being done behind the scenes.
Think of it like a mechanical governor on a steam engine.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, the governor isn't there to stop the engine from working. It's there to prevent the engine from spinning so fast that it just vibrates out of control and explodes.
Right. It's a safety mechanism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we bypass our own internal governor, we think we're unlocking extra horsepower, but really we're just removing the only thing keeping the machine intact.
And that mechanical reality translates perfectly to our physical and psychological stamina.
It really does.
Every ounce of energy that breaks away from a sustainable pace from your measure might look like a burst of impressive speed, but it leads directly to exhaustion, not the finish line.
I am going to push back on this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because this philosophy directly contradicts almost everything we are taught in modern society.
Oh, totally.
We are constantly rewarded for that exact kind of excess. Like hustle culture, working 80-hour weeks, optimizing every single second of your day.
It's everywhere.
It is. Society looks at the person running their engine into the red line and hands them a promotion for their quote-unquote drive.
Right, they get the venture capital.
They get the magazine covers, they're the role models.
Society definitely applauds the red line, I completely agree. But the text provides a brilliant counter-argument to that cultural pressure.
How so?
There's a couplet in the reading that essentially dismantles this modern obsession with speed.
Okay, what does it say?
It reads, "Excess grants speed, But Measure shows the way speed tires, Measure carries, keeping one in place to stay.
Wow. Speed tires, Measure carries, that shifts the whole paradigm.
It really forces us to reevaluate what is actually sustaining us. Excess gives you that immediate flashy speed that gets the magazine cover. Sure.
It drains you.
It fundamentally drains the organism. Measure is the mechanism that actually carries you through a lifetime.
Because we usually think of being measured as being restricted or, I don't know, held back.
Yes, but the texts argue the complete opposite. Measure is a protective center.
A protective center.
Right. It's a core that prevents the individual from scattering their energy to the wind.
Surviving the long haul, then, isn't just about pacing your physical output, it's about pacing your mind.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean, like on a psychological level? If Measure is a protective center, what happens inside our heads when we lose it?
Well, the sources argue that the very first place Measure is lost is in one's relationship with oneself.
When no one else is looking.
Right. Without that internal center, our absolute best qualities kind of metastasize and become destructive.
Wait, our best qualities?
Yeah. The text specifically notes that when Measure is lost, freedom turns into drifting, and discipline turns into harshness.
Oh, wow.
Both freedom and discipline are vital virtues, right? But when they can't stand side by side in balance, they literally strain the soul.
The discipline turning into harshness makes a lot of sense if we think about the mechanism behind it.
How do you mean?
Well, discipline without a center just becomes an obsession with the rule rather than the result.
Exactly. You forget the why.
Right. When you forget why you're being disciplined in the first place, the discipline just becomes a weapon you use to punish yourself for being human.
That's a great point. And the text outlines two very distinct opposing extremes that result from this internal loss of measure.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first extreme is exactly what you're describing. It's the person who is excessively harsh with themselves.
The perfectionist?
Right. They do not forgive their own mistakes and absolutely cannot tolerate their own deficiencies.
They view a 95% success rate as a catastrophic failure.
Yes, because they've completely detached discipline from its actual purpose.
I think everyone listening can relate to that, or at least, knows a manager or parent who operates that way.
Oh, definitely.
Every tiny failure is treated as an indictment of your entire character.
It's exhausting.
But if the excessively harsh person is gripping the steering wheel too tightly, I have to assume the opposite trap is just letting go of the wheel entirely.
You nailed it. The other extreme is a person who is entirely boundless toward themselves.
Boundless.
They accept no limits whatsoever, and they deem every single desire to be perfectly legitimate.
So any constraint is seen as an attack.
Exactly. They view any constraint as an assault on their identity. This is where freedom devolves into pure drifting.
Wow.
They're completely unmoored, just constantly chasing the next impulse without any solid ground beneath them.
It's the ultimate modern indulgence, isn't it? The idea that whatever I feel must be right, and I should never have to hear the word no.
It really is. Now, in both of these cases, the excessively harsh and the boundless, the text points out that what is lacking is a specific concept called turbi.
Turbi. What does that translate to?
It translates to refinement.
Refinement, okay.
And true refinement is neither crushing oneself under impossible standards nor letting oneself go completely.
So what is it then?
The definition provided is incredibly simple but deep. Refinement is knowing oneself.
That conceptual leap is fascinating. How does knowing yourself equate to refinement?
Well, think about it. Like if we think about refinement in the physical world, right? Like a sculptor refining a block of marble.
Right.
They have to chip away the excess.
Yeah.
But they can only do that if they know the true shape of the figure inside.
Exactly. That's a perfect metaphor.
So if you truly know yourself, your actual capacity, you know your limits.
Yeah.
So you don't crush yourself when you hit them.
Yes.
And you know your weaknesses, so you don't blindly indulge every impulse. You chip away the extremes.
That sculptor metaphor captures the essence of turbi perfectly. Once you know your true shape and find that internal center, it naturally begins to radiate outward into your external life.
It changes how you interact with the world. Yes. The texts emphasize that this isn't just an exercise in lofty philosophy. It plays out in the mundane reality of our day-to-day existence.
Okay, so how does this internal sculptor, this refinement, actually change things when we zoom out to, say, a random Tuesday morning at the office?
Measure reveals itself through tiny, compounding daily choices.
Like what?
Well, it's found in how much we speak versus when we choose to fall silent. It's in how much we work versus when we actively decide to stop.
Setting those boundaries?
Right. The essays note that a person cannot do everything at the same intensity because life has an inherent rhythm to it.
A rhythm.
Yes,
Yeah.
and measure is the ability to hear that rhythm. One who misses the rhythm becomes either hurried or stagnant.
Hurried or stagnant. That is a brilliant way to describe modern anxiety versus modern depression.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Think about it. If you're constantly hurried, you are hyperventilating.
You're just gasping for air.
You are exhaling endlessly in a rapid panic, trying to answer every email the second it arrives. But if you become stagnant, you harden. You try to hold your breath entirely, refusing to adapt or move forward. You need the rhythm between the inhale and the exhale.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, taking that breathing analogy and scaling it up, the texts apply this exact same framework to the level of human civilization.
Really, how does that work on a societal level?
It explains what happens when a whole society loses its measure.
Yeah.
The essays explicitly state that when rules harden in a society, breath tightens.
Right.
But on the flip side, when rules loosen too much, order dissolves entirely.
Authoritarian harshness on one side and complete societal drifting on the other.
Exactly.
It is the exact same problem as the internal extremes, just played out by millions of people at once.
Spot on. And the texts use a very sharp contrast to illustrate this societal balance. It looks at the interplay between humor and gravity.
Humor and gravity.
The argument is that when humor completely destroys gravity, when absolutely nothing is taken seriously anymore and everything is reduced to a joke, society devolves into mere levity.
Levity. Just totally weightless.
Exactly. It becomes superficial. It loses the capacity to solve real problems.
You see that all the time in modern discourse. Turning everything into a meme is a form of societal drifting.
It really is.
But what happens when the pendulum swings the other way?
When gravity completely excludes humor, when everything is rigidly serious and heavily policed, the result is sheer gloom.
Gloom.
And a society drowning in gloom breeds resentment and fragility.
So you need both.
Right. The conclusion reached is that a healthy society does not choose one over the other. A healthy culture is defined by its ability to carry these opposites in balance, holding humor and gravity side by side without letting one destroy the other.
Okay, but if this balance, this rhythm, is so clearly healthy for us internally and for society as a whole, it really begs the question, why on earth do we resist it so much?
We do fight it constantly.
Human nature seems to constantly fight against measure.
The sources address this resistance head on, actually. They trace it back to what they consider the greatest misconception of modern times. The core of the issue is that we fundamentally confuse measure with mediocrity.
Here's where it gets really interesting,
Yes.
because I'm glad the text brings that up. I guarantee you someone listening right now is thinking, isn't being measured just a polite philosophical way of saying you are settling for being ordinary?
That is the exact fear.
It feels like a defense mechanism for people who don't want to strive for greatness. Like if you never go to extremes, you never do anything exceptional.
But the text emphatically tears that assumption down.
How does it respond?
It states flatly, to be measured is not to be ordinary. It is to be in one's rightful place.
One's rightful place.
Yes, a word that knows its place is precious. A stance that knows its place inspires trust. When you have measure, you aren't blending into the background or becoming average. You are becoming reliable.
Let's really linger on that because that is a massive paradigm shift.
That's huge.
The difference between a mediocre person and a measured person is astronomical.
Completely different things.
Think about a mediocre employee, for instance. They do the bare minimum just to avoid getting fired. It's an attitude of apathy.
Right. They just don't care.
But a measured employee is operating with calibrated intensity.
Ooh, calibrated intensity. I like that.
Yeah. They know exactly when to sprint to hit a critical deadline, and they know exactly when to close the laptop at 5 p.m., so they have the cognitive energy to actually solve a crisis the next morning.
Yes.
Mediocrity is a lack of effort. Measure is the precision of effort.
And that precision is where true power lies.
Right.
Think about a vital gear in a massive engine. It isn't trying to be the biggest part. It's trying to be exactly what it needs to be in its rightful place.
Right.
If art decides to become, extreme and grow twice its size, it destroys the whole machine.
It breaks everything.
Reliability is an incredibly potent trait, much more powerful than erratic, unpredictable bursts of speed.
To be in one's rightful place, it really redefines greatness entirely. We usually associate greatness with being the loudest or the most extreme.
We do.
But this philosophy argues that when measure is lost, life does not grow.
The texts make that point explicitly. When measure is lost, life scatters. And conversely, when measure is found, life does not shrink, it deepens.
Life does not shrink, it deepens. That completely dismantles the fear of mediocrity.
It really does.
You aren't spreading yourself out over a million superficial things. You are drilling down to the bedrock of what actually matters.
Which brings us full circle back to the concept of turbi.
The refinement.
Right. The essays conclude that what we call refinement is simply the ongoing daily effort to protect this depth.
It is a truly profound journey these texts take us on today.
It really is.
We started by realizing that our modern exhaustion isn't a result of having the wrong goals, but of falling for the illusion of excess.
Mistaking that rush for real power.
Right. We mistake the adrenaline of speed for actual power, forgetting that the engine governor is there to keep the machine intact, not to hold it back.
And then we trace that external failure to an internal imbalance. We saw how discipline, divorced from its purpose, turns into self-inflicted harshness.
Speeding yourself up.
Exactly. And how freedom without a center becomes pure drifting. The antidote provided is refinement, chipping away our extremes through true self-knowledge.
That internal sculptor.
Yes.
And that shapes our daily rhythm, teaching us the crucial balance between speaking and silence, working and resting.
And it scales all the way up to our culture, warning us against the weightless levity of constant humor and the crushing gloom of absolute gravity.
Ultimately leading us to unlearn the most toxic myth of our time. The fear that balance makes us mediocre. We learned that precision of effort, finding our rightful place, is what makes us reliable and profound.
Now, this raises an important question.
Which is?
As we look at how to judge our own actions moving forward, how does the text suggest we weigh our daily choices?
Does it give us a final takeaway?
It does. The material leaves us with one final couplet that serves as a perfect anchor for this entire philosophy.
I'm ready.
It reads, "If measure is lost, even intention becomes a weight. Where measure is found, life does not darken, it finds its settled state."
Even intention becomes a weight. That is incredibly striking.
But it's hard.
If you have no measure, even your very best intentions, your deep desire to be a supportive friend, a dedicated worker, a loving partner, will eventually crush you.
Exactly.
Without the rhythm of rest and capacity, your own goodness becomes a burden instead of a purpose.
But when you find that measure, life finds its settled state. You stop fighting the inherent rhythm of your own capacity and start actually living within it.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think back to the governor on that steam engine. Look at your calendar, your workspace, or even your mental to-do list for today. Where have you equated more with better?
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
It is. Where has the adrenaline of speed begun to mask the structural damage being done to your own energy? Ask yourself, could you purposefully remove just one thing right now? Not as an act of giving up, and not because you are settling for mediocrity, but to create a center.
I love that.
A protective core that actually deepens the value and the precision of everything else you have chosen to keep. Remember, the goal isn't to spin the engine as fast as possible until it breaks. The goal is to preserve the machine so you can actually enjoy the distance it carries you.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep finding your rhythm.